Hi everyone, I'm Sloan from SloanBella.com and I am back with another astrology video. Now this is an exciting one because we have so much going on astrologically, and it started last year in May of 2020 when the nodes shifted from Cancer Capricorn into Gemini Sagittarius. The nodes change about every 18 months, and when they do, we as a group of people in the world, in society, change and shift along with that nodal axis. We begin to start to see things from that perspective. And when planets make aspects to it or eclipses happen on it, it shifts and opens us up in a different way than we have been thinking. Now, if you look at the way the world is, ever since in May of 2020, the nodes shifted from the Cancer Capricorn aspect into Gemini Sagittarius. This is a year ago, so this is 12 months ago, we really have learned how to communicate and educate ourselves in an entirely different way. There are certain forms of social media which they don't allow communication on anymore. There are other types of social media which have exploded, like TikTok. There's ways that we've learned how to educate and communicate within our neighborhood, within our group of people, within our work circumstances that are entirely foreign to the way that we used to do business and live our lives prior to those eclipses starting last year in May, over the summer, and again in December. So that eclipse season ended, and now we have the beginning of eclipse season for this year, highlighting that Gemini Sagittarius energy and opening it up in an even broader way. There are other things going on in the astrology of the world happening and opening up the planetary aspects to focus our energy in a different way and in a precise way. This is a very focused energy we're coming into, and it's a very unique energy, and it's setting us, I hate to say this, it's setting us up mentally for the United States Pluto return in February of 2022. I can only imagine as I roll my eyes, big eye roll. Anyway, I can't even do the video on that. I can't even think about it actually right now, but let's start with what's going on. So, the first thing I want you guys to do is I want you to go back to last year of May, and I want you to think about what was happening in your own life. Like, what were you dealing with when those nodes changed? May, June, July, all the way through to the end of the year. What was happening in your experience? What were you learning about? What was being highlighted? What were you releasing and getting rid of? So for a lot of us, and for most of us actually, these eclipses, which are starting on May 26th with the huge full moon in Sagittarius, okay, it's a full super blood moon. Now a super moon is when the moon's closest to the Earth's axis. It doesn't travel always in alignment with that, so some of the full moons are farther away from the Earth's gravitational pull. This one is right up on it, okay? So energetically, a supermoon is far more powerful because the pull is right there. Lunatics, emotions, emotionality, emoting, all of these things are going to be prominent during this full moon in Sagittarius, and it is a total lunar eclipse, and it is happening, as I said, on May 26th at 4:14 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, California time, West Coast time, because that's the only time I can keep in my head because I'm here, so I can focus on that. Anyway, it's happening. But before that, let's get into the other things leading up to that so I can kind of give you the picture of how the energy is going to explode onto the world scene. And it is going to explode. We're going to see things that we just really, I don't even know what to say. Anyhow, I'm just going to say that. Okay, so the first thing we have is Venus has now gone into the sign of Gemini. So Venus in Gemini is wonderful for communication and talking. So love relationships or relating with people you love. This could be friends, relatives, just anybody, coworkers that you love, because when Venus is in Gemini, it allows for this conversation between people that is heightened and exciting and informational and exchanging and reciprocal. Not always the case when Venus is in other signs. As I said, when Venus goes into the sign of Taurus, even though it is exalted in Taurus, what happens is you can focus on all of your sensual needs, not necessarily communication. So Venus in Gemini gives us a chance to chatter away in our lives, annoy our loved ones or not, have reciprocal conversations, meet new people, and learn things. So after that, we then had, like 3 days ago, we had Jupiter jump into the sign of Pisces. Now, Jupiter in the sign of Pisces is phenomenal because Jupiter is extremely expansive. So anytime you see the energy of Sagittarius, Jupiter, its ruling planet, you see expansiveness. Sometimes it can mean burning the candle at both ends and too much of a good thing. So you're like winning a race, but you're winning 6 races back to back to back and you're exhausted, but you can't stop winning. Good thing. But you're super tired and you're like, oh my gosh. So the energy is expansive. In the sign of Pisces, that is a spiritual expansiveness. So that to me is very exciting. It is spiritually motivating and expanding the way that we think on a consciousness level, literally, spiritually speaking. So Jupiter in Pisces is just amazing to open up yourself to learn different spiritual pursuits or different trains of thought that is foreign to the usual way that you think. And that happened, I want to say, I forget when it happened. I want to say on the 13th, but I might be wrong. Anyway, Jupiter is now in Pisces, but it all ties in to this full moon and eclipse. Yes, it does. Because the eclipse is making a direct square to that Jupiter in Pisces. So that's going to be very interesting as far as opening up information and the channels, because we think of information in the way of reading a book, hearing from a phone call, listening to a teacher, listening to another person. But when it's squaring, when it's squaring the eclipse, the nodal axis, and it's Jupiter, what it is it's opening up information from unconscious or intuitive streams of thought. And it may cause conflict because you are getting information intuitively, psychically, internally from source, and you can't really speak that because you can't really prove that. So that's what's happening in that particular instance. But before we get into this full moon, total lunar eclipse, let's talk about Saturn going retrograde, oh no, on the 23rd of May. That's right, we have Saturn going retrograde, and as it goes retrograde, oh no, God, I did it again. Saturn goes retrograde, yes, on the 23rd. What am I talking about? Yes, it does. Saturn goes retrograde on the 23rd. I thought it was the 29th, but that's Mercury. You see, we're already in the shadow period. I'm already making up stuff or saying stuff backwards. Okay, so Saturn goes retrograde on the 23rd of May. And as it goes stationary retrograde, it is in a square to Uranus. Now that's fascinating, I feel, because as it goes retrograde and it is squaring Uranus, that is the energy that we're going to feel for the whole time frame that Saturn is retrograde, which I think is till, I don't even want to say, I want to say October, June. I'm just going to look it up. Sorry, I have to look it up. I have to actually look it up to see when it goes direct because I can't keep anything in my head because I just can't. Okay, so Saturn, yeah, I think it's going to be, it's October. I thought it was June, but that's not June, it's October. So we have it all the way through till October. So what we have happening with that Uranus square and Saturn going retrograde is we have conflict before the way that we present ourselves and the parameter with which we do it. So the boundaries, the fence around our energy and the way that we perceive it. So how much laxity do we give people and how much do we tighten on people? So Uranus just wants freedom. Uranus is like, you know what? I'm out of here, bitch. I'm gone. That's Uranus. Uranus does not want to be controlled on any level whatsoever. Now, Uranus is in the sign of Taurus. Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign ruled by Uranus natally, okay? It's like normally. So when you're looking at this, it's a contradiction in terms, and it's almost like an emotional festering of belief systems that are going to be removed from your life, your thought, your day-to-day experience through circumstances that are so bizarre, you're going to be like, I don't understand what happened, but now I see things differently. So what this is to me in its very intrinsic sense with the Saturn retrograde and going retrograde squaring Uranus, what this is it is a vast opening of consciousness to the reality of our environment. So this is an opening of the eyes that were closed to see the environment in which we exist in. Not what we have been told, not what people want us to think, but actually what is in front of us, what is in front of our face. What do we really see? What is really going on? And it's going to happen in a very extreme way. In other words, it's here to basically slap you on the side of the head and knock some sense into you. Now, where it can become problematic is because there can be a tremendous amount of miscommunication. Because remember, as we're talking about Saturn going retrograde, and we're talking about the square to Uranus, we are also talking about Mercury in the shadow period going retrograde on the 29th in a square. Well, actually the first square happened, I want to say in June. The last square happens in June. There I go saying it backwards, Mercury retrograde. The last square happens in June. The first one is happening on the 22nd of May. Mercury is not retrograde at that point. The next one's going to happen in June, early June, the first week in June, I think June 5th. And the next one is in July. June, Mercury will be retrograde, but you have to understand when it's squaring Neptune, Mercury squaring Neptune, and that Jupiter Pisces aspect, okay, because the eclipse is squaring Jupiter in Pisces, and Neptune, Pisces is ruled by the planet of Neptune. This creates, and all I can say is a tremendous focus on needing to understand what you are actually seeing in front of you in your life. What are you seeing? What are you dealing with? How is the world the way that you thought it or thought it was not? It's very Piscean what's happening to us. Now, Pisces and Piscean aspects and Neptunian aspects and Jupiter in Pisces is an expansion of consciousness, okay? So understanding things in an entirely different way, and it's being set off, okay? It's literally being set off by Saturn going retrograde. And as it goes retrograde, it's squaring Uranus. So that's setting it up to keep digging into the way that we perceive our environment. This is from a spiritual perspective. It can be with nothing else, with Mercury and Neptune like that, and then Jupiter in Pisces. It can be nothing else. I mean, what it is it's, to me, with Uranus. Now, with Uranus in Taurus, which Taurus is very earthbound, it's earthy, it's grounded. It rules the planet Earth where we live. I really believe it does. I know it's ruled by Venus, but I'm saying I believe that Taurus is the ruling energy of this Earth, the materialism of the Earth, the building blocks that we have to have on this Earth in order to at least get somewhere. With Uranus being in Taurus, think about this for a second. It's an expansion of what kind of building blocks we're going to use and how we're going to view materialism on the Earth with Saturn going retrograde. Do you see? So Saturn is always, you reap as you shall sow. So it's in Aquarius, and that hasn't happened yet, meaning the Aquarian energy is usually ahead of its time. The Taurian energy is right now in the moment, the logistics of what's happening in front of you. The two together are breaking through barriers and blocks, knocking down walls, punching people out to get information in a different way and to structure the logistics of your immediate environment and thus society in a different way or platform. We are learning this through this experience. So it's going to be fascinating to see what that actually means. To me, it means we are shifting for future years in an entirely different direction than we could even imagine. And I think it's probably pretty much out of our control. But what I can tell you is with the Piscean influence that's happening during this entire time frame, I am seeing that it is a consciousness level of experience. So it isn't going to be, oh my God, there's the newspaper, there's your food, there's your dinner, there's your car, you need to hold on to your money. It's going to be, I need to pray, I need to meditate, I need to go inward in order to figure out how I'm going to handle this. That's exactly what it is. Now, tie in the nodal change last May, tie it in, and then tie it in to May 26th, when we have a total lunar eclipse at 5 degrees and 26 minutes of Sagittarius, okay? Little Sag, little happy Sag. It's usually very happy for the most part, except it's squaring Jupiter. But that's just going to make it happy. It's not going to blow it up completely. I mean, if it was squaring like, Mars, I'd say, oh my God, but it's not. So we also have Mars in Cancer, by the way. Just saying that. That's off the top of my head. I'm like, oh my God, now Mars is shifting into Cancer. So what's going on with this eclipse and this total lunar eclipse is it's opening the door for what happened last May. You've got to pay attention to this. So there's a restructuring going on in your life. And it's going from the Gemini to the Sagittarius energy. So Sagittarius is asking you to shift your stubborn, rigid beliefs, whatever those may be, and to expand them in a different way, to see things differently. Maybe you're not always right. Maybe you don't know what you're talking about. I know I don't. But what I'm saying is, whatever your rigid belief systems are and your rules and your functionality in your day-to-day life needs to be expanded. So expect things to knock the shit out of your security, the way that you view the world, the things that you find to give you comfort. No, this is going to shift your reality, and it's going to come in with a big bang. Now, what I like to say in every single time before an eclipse, if you don't have to have surgery, don't plan surgery 7 days before, and don't plan surgery 7 days after. If you have to, you have to. Like if you're in a car accident, you have to go to the doctor. Obviously, you got to do what you got to do. But don't deliberately do surgical stuff around an eclipse. That's just like astrology 101. Just trust me on that. Or in a Venus retrograde if you're doing cosmetic surgery. Anyway, the next thing that we're going to see with this eclipse happening and with the opening of this is people really going back to the foundation and the core beliefs of who they are as spirit beings, not as human beings. So on a spiritual consciousness level, that is what's elevating. So expect to see people really start to divide with their energy. This person thinks this way. This person thinks this way. And watch for things to split like this, because that is exactly what's going on during this time. Now, as we're looking for this eclipse, keep in mind, they're all running in tandem, restructuring. This is restructuring everything. This is truly a new time that we're going into. And then what happens, you ask? And what happens? What happens is we have Mercury on the 29th of May getting ready to go retrograde. Now, it goes retrograde, and it goes retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So Mercury will be going retrograde, and it is squaring, you ask, Neptune, meaning your communications could be, an example, drunk or high, overindulging, not making sense, assuming something you shouldn't assume, questioning things you shouldn't question, ignoring things you shouldn't. So it can go either way, okay? It can highlight something, and because of that Neptune, you're like, you know what, I don't care. Or you can make shit up in your head because Mercury's retrograde, and you can jump down someone's throat and not see the reality of what you're saying or doing during the retrograde time frame. So we really have to be mindful of our words during this time, and that's what is being highlighted. And I believe Mercury is retrograde until June 22nd, I want to say. Now I'm going to look at my book and see when it actually is, but I think it's June 22nd. Yeah, it's June 22nd, and it goes direct at 16 degrees and 10 seconds of Gemini. So Geminis, you are going to be completely affected by this series of events and the lunar eclipse and the full moon. You're going to be totally affected. Geminis, Sagittariuses, 0 to 10 to 15 degrees. Virgo and Pisces, you group of mutable signs, okay? So we've got mutable air, we've got mutable fire, we've got mutable earth, and then we've got mutable water. All of you all are going to be affected. Because the full moon's in Sagittarius, you're going to see your fire signs, your Aries, your Leos, and your Sages acting up during this full moon. Yeah, they're going to act up, and everybody is going to be hearing information that doesn't make sense to them, repeating things that aren't true, and vice versa throughout this whole retrograde. I can already feel the retrograde. I've had to do this video like over and over because I say things backwards. So I can feel the whole retrograde. I can feel it already. Here's what you do. You go to your natal birth chart and you look to see where the nodes are sitting in your natal chart. Okay, so Gemini, Sagittarius, that is where the eclipse is going to affect you on that axis. And then you go to see the full moon in Sagittarius and see what planets are there, see what is aspecting the full moon in your chart at the time of the eclipse, which again is May 26th at 4:14 a.m. California time. And you're going to see how it's going to affect you. And in my personal opinion, eclipses, really, I start to feel the energy of them can be 2 months prior, and I feel them 6 months after. So I really feel eclipse energy. If you're at all sensitive or empathic or, clairsentient, psychic, you're going to resonate with this vibration, because the truth is, we are being leveled up consciously. This isn't about like making more money or having a Tesla or, doing whatever. It's a level up of consciousness. Once you vibrate in a different way, according to the essence of your soul, things look different in the world around you. So for some, it's going to make perfect sense. For others, it's going to confuse the hell out of them. And then we're going to see society as a whole kind of divide into two different groups. Those that are energetically evolving and those that are choosing not to. Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, and we have Uranus in Taurus. So that's what's happening with that energy. So that's that polarity of that energy. So for the lunar eclipse, okay, and the full moon in Sagittarius, remember, full moons are for releasing. Eclipses keep releasing a good 6 months after the experience of the degree of the eclipse, okay? So whatever it is you're putting into motion and whatever you don't want to have happen or you do want to have happen, that energy is going to be expansive with the square to Jupiter. So it's going to continue, but this can be in a good way. You may not want to get rid of something, but it may be in your best interest, or you may not think about something and it comes to you and that may be in your best interest. So I want everybody to kind of think of things from that perspective so that they can move in the direction that they need to move in order to consciously elevate their body's energy. This also pertains, and I see this is on a psychic level, not an astrological level, but I actually see a shifting, so much so in consciousness that there's an understanding of the neighborhood in which we live, meaning planet Earth. There's a real understanding of the energy here. So those people's eyes that were shut are now going to be opened. So there will be no denying certain things on the planet, and I'm absolutely seeing that. The other things that I see going on have to do with shifts in the way that we extend our health and viral issues that come up again towards the end of the year. Because remember, we have other things affecting us energetically as we move to the end of this year. And then ending this year, although it's the beginning of next year, is the USA's Pluto return. And I was trying to get out of this country before that happened. But of course, we can't go anywhere. So I guess I'll have to enjoy it here with you guys. But that's what's going on. There is a consciousness shift. And I don't mean like you've got to take microdosing or ayahuasca or any of that bullshit. I mean literally, energetically, your body is being tuned and harmonized to vibrate at a different level than you have. So it's like there's an athletic thing going on internally that's elevating the way that you process things and see things on a spiritual level, but they're actually working on your body's energy level, energetic form. And that's what I see. All right, y'all. Once again, my name is Sloan from SloanBella.com.